everyone, welcome to the Style with Glenda K. Harrison YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I have a very special interview with my son. And if you're coming over from The Dig, my blog, then you know my last post was called Like Mother Like Son. And it was with my son Sean. We did a style story. And it was a lot of fun. And I said in the post that I was going to come back to you so that you guys would all have an opportunity to get to know Sean a little bit more. So that's what this video is about. But before we get started, be sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so that you'll get a reminder every time I post a video. So now on to the interview. Sean, this is my baby, everyone. My oldest baby. I call him the artist, the oldest, or bear. But now that he's a grown man, I can officially refer to him as his name, Sean. And many of you have probably seen Sean on my Instagram. He is a young saxophonist who has many accolades here in Southern California. So I'm so proud of him. What are some of your accolades, son?
Well, I've had the opportunity to play with Arturo Sandoval, Barbara Morrison, who are great jazz legends in their own right. And in the other realms, I've gotten to play with Moses Sumney and Solange Knowles, at the Hollywood Bowl and a lot of other notable venues. I've had the opportunity to play at some pretty great locations for some pretty great people, and it all starts with my loving parents who help foster and nurture that desire to make music.
So not patting my own back, what did we do to foster your love for the music and arts? And
well, first they took me to all my practices, so that was cool. But they didn't provide really any you didn't provide any boundaries as far as me practicing and wanting to make music. If there was something I wanted to do, they would try to make ends meet as far as lessons and equipment and everything. So that was pretty cool, especially because music is, especially for a young musician, it's not exactly a very cheap thing in that regard. So they made sure that I had what I needed in order to survive, essentially. So that was cool, and of course they're always at my shows when they can be, so that helps a lot. Along those lines.
Yeah, well, we have to make sure we're at the shows because, being in entertainment, there are lots of women hanging around, so I have to make sure that they're okay.
Oh my God.
So we went out and we did our first photo shoot together last week.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be fun for us to do that because the story goes with Sean, when he was a baby, he would scream bloody murder every time I would attempt to go shopping. And then as he advanced in years, when I would take him to the stores to get him his school clothes and whatever, it would just be a horrific experience for me because I would always want to pick out the clothing for my sons, both of them, him and his little brother, and they would just retaliate against me. And oftentimes I would leave the store wanting to punch their lights out and calling my husband, and he would just say, Glenda, just let them pick out and wear what they want to wear. So I just had these ideals in my head of what I thought that they should dress like. So but now it's different, and Sean has kind of grown into his, I guess, his style, and it's really cool. It's a really cool style. You look at him and he is giving a visual picture of who he is and what he's all about, and so that's why I wanted to get him out on a photo shoot. So do you want to explain how you felt in that photo shoot?
Pretty stiff. Taking pictures without my instrument is hard. It's a lot harder to pose. Well, it's hard for me to pose consciously. I don't do it. That's why I always prefer to have candids taken if possible. But it was fun. You know, it was hot, but it was fun. I gotta get better at modeling and so on and so forth. I need to learn from the master over here.
Yeah, right. I'm the master. No, it isn't easy. I agree with you. When I first started getting out there, I was so afraid. And if anybody was around, I just would say, no, stop. I don't want anyone to look at me or whatever. But now I don't care. As a matter of fact, when there's people around, I seem to pose a little harder. So yeah, so I think the secret for me is that when I'm wearing something, I have an idea or a feeling that I want to convey through the pictures. So whether it's ultra feminine, if it's a little edgy, if it's classic, if it's southwestern, if it's a little badass, I can kind of like, it's almost like a form of acting or getting in, you know, it's like acting. So I have the ability to kind of pose in a way that I think like a badass would be posing, or, you know, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the next time we go out, you'll be able to channel that, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
So to cleanse.
So how do you describe your style? Because I put it out there the way you told me to, and I was like, wow, spot on. And I know a lot of people may not understand what that means. So how would you, first of all, give that definition again if you remember it. Give that definition of how you described your style, and then kind of say how that evolved.
Okay. Well, I guess if I could, like, I had to think pretty hard when my mom asked me about it, but I guess I would describe my style as more like Afro-classic, Afro-dandyism, and a little bit of Afro-punk. And that's super difficult for me to like really try to categorize. I'm always, it's hard for me. I always try to break boundaries and so on and so forth as far as art goes. But I guess it kind of evolved. I'm trying to think about how it evolved. It really kind of came into prominence because, you know, of course, I had my mom influencing me and telling me how important it is to present yourself as much as possible. And then, of course, you know, in my teens, I didn't listen to a thing she said. And when I was, you know, what do parents know, right? But you know, it really, you know, aside from the fact, it did make an impact on me. I did listen, I just didn't want to listen. But as I got older and when I went to school and I started playing gigs, and I played with some people who were very well prepared, and especially when I went on the Solange group, I was surrounded by a bunch of young African American men, you know, that were in my age range, who were always dressed extremely well. And I always noticed that a lot of brothers and sisters were dressed very sharp, you know, and it was super cool to see that. And I kind of felt like I kind of felt like an outcast, which was kind of funny. I saw a lot of other people who looked similar to me, you know. They had something that I didn't, you know. They, of course, you know, it wasn't just about the music anymore, you know. And I don't like to try to define myself by like what everyone is doing. But the cool thing about it was that all these people were dressed very much like themselves. So as I got to know them, I also could see their character in their playing and in their clothing.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool, you know. And then I started to pay attention a little more to my mother, and I had even educators, you know, who would say, you know, would mention the importance of looking the part, you know, looking and acting and even smelling the part, which is kind of silly. Well, I thought at first, and I kind of disregarded it, but then I realized now, as my cerebral cortex is forming, I'm starting to realize its importance. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you say Afro classic, Afro dandyism, and of course then there's that subculture Afro punk.
Yeah.
So for my viewers who are trying to understand the difference between just classic versus Afro classic, how do you distinguish the two?
Well, personally, with Afro classic, I think that one's a little interesting because, you know, there was a long period of time, and I think in 20th century clothing, you know, fashion has always been a thing, obviously, but specifically American fashion has kind of evolved on its own, in its own norm, and it's pretty interesting, I think. So much so that, like, you know, and this is something that I read and like talk about a lot with my friends and family and colleagues, but in reference to how someone should dress based off of their age, that's always a discussion that I have with people. You know, you have groups of people and social norms that seem to kind of they're drawn towards a certain look, especially African Americans that are my age, along with young African American men, kind of fit more so in the hip hop aesthetic, you know, because that's what's popular for us, and what's significant in our culture, you know. But personally for me, you know, I grew up listening to what my parents listened to, which was more in the R&B aesthetic, you know, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Anita Baker. And I think the reason I mention this is because, you know, a lot of classic wear is, you know, like wearing like denim, something like that, is something that is usually categorized under a certain norm of American people, and usually Black Americans don't fit under that category. And I'm wearing denim now. I love denim. You know, and I could go in about that, but essentially I think Afro classic essentially means being able to wear American wear in our own way, with our own style, our own flair, wearing kind of casual clothing, like something like a denim piece or loafers like I'm wearing now, and kind of turning them into my own kind of a thing, you know, kind of making it fit inside of my reality, inside of my norm. So that's, I think, what I think Afro classic means. Essentially a Black man wearing clothes that might not be considered basic or classic in their norm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like adding your own flair to it.
Yeah,
it's kind of like in Harlem, when you would view images from the past of Harlem, even versus today, there is such a distinct flair with African Americans, the way we do things.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool. So in essence then, it sounds to me like you now understand the difference between style, having style, versus being in style.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's for sure. I always I think originally I didn't want to dress up because, I don't know, in my mind, I guess I saw it as a trend, and I always made an effort not to at all any way conform to any sort of trend, even though dressing. But it took me a while to realize that dressing well and trying to look your best has nothing to do with trends.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if I'm trying to dress like someone particular, you know, like trying to dress the same way as somebody who's in pop culture. That could be a different argument, but I realize that, you know, your sense of style doesn't have to have anything to do with trends, like, you know, and I really think that history and different social norms can become your own style, you know, your own version of you.
Yeah,
So.
exactly right. You sound like you read a great book called True Style, A Look Beyond the Surface.
Oh my God. What a plug.
So basically what you're talking about is being an expressionist.
Of course.
And that doesn't call for having the latest whatever goes down the runway, whatever's being sold in store. It's being able to just see something and just putting it on and it just looking like you, no matter what the price or decade it's from or whatever.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to add?
Oh my God.
My little bear.
I don't know. I think I'm good. Just wear what you like.
Yeah.
Do what you like.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
This was fun. I'm looking over here and I have like this huge smile on my face because I'm telling you, it was rough in the beginning.
Yeah.
But now it's nice. It's nice seeing him. He always comes in my room and kind of says, "Hey, Mom," or, you know, he goes and gets his clothes and he'll give a little fashion show, and or he's out on his own and he'll like snap a picture of himself in the fitting room and say, "Mom, what do you think of this?" He's really good at mixing prints, and that's something that scares the bejeebers out of me. That is not something that I try to engage in, but I admire people who can really mix prints, and it's just like, wow, it works. So yeah, kudos to you. So I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed collaborating with my musician son. And like I said, be sure that you subscribe to Style with Glenda K. Harrison on YouTube. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, also on Instagram. Hey, do you want to share your Instagram?
Oh yeah, sure. What is my Instagram? Oh, it's I'm_Sean SEAN_Harrison.
And I'll be sure to tag that below so that you guys will have a direct link to it. He has a fun Instagram account. Of course, there's his music, there's his fashion, and in his Instagram stories, he likes to cook. So he also shares recipes and different things like that. So super cool, very proud of him. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And until next time, bye for now.